being updated on Trump's bill. Disastrous bill, scam of a bill, redistribution of wealth from the bottom top bill, tragedy of a bill. And it looks like right now it doesn't have the votes, and that's good. I hate to say, though, not hopeful. Not hopeful about Republicans shooting this down. We saw when it originally passed the House and then got changed to the Senate, so that's why it's now back in the House, that Trump was calling up and quote-unquote literally yelling, screaming, swearing at Republican lawmakers, threatening them. And we've seen Thomas Massie, Tom Tillis recently. When you defy Trump on this bill because you acknowledge either it's wildly fiscally irresponsible, which is the main problem some of these Republicans have, adds a bunch of the debt, or most importantly, it rips away health care and food support from millions of Americans in service of these tax cuts for the rich, he will call you and scream at you until, as almost every Republican does, as we saw the Senate Republicans do, you cave. And so as we go through this, I'm loving to see Democrats on the House floor just ripping to shreds Trump and his bill here. I'll show you those examples. I'll show you Republicans after they left a meeting with Trump and all these different things, but I'm just being as frank as I can with you. I'm not hopeful that this is going to be killed in the Senate or in the House. I think it's going to end up on Trump's desk, and then it'll be signed into law, and then our job will be to make sure people understand the damage being done is indeed because of this guy, who I'll start this with just a reminder of his delusional defense of the bill.
Is that it's a great bill. It's a popular bill. But we'll get no Democrats only because they don't want to vote for Trump. If that bill was their bill, oh, they would be so happy. It's so great for our military. It's great for everything. And they would normally vote. But because their hatred of Trump, they have Trump derangement syndrome at levels never seen before. And instead of voting for a tax cut, they're voting for a tax increase of 68%. They're voting to destroy Social Security, destroy Medicare, and destroy Medicaid. And we're voting to make them perfect and to make them better, make them stronger and better. They're going to destroy Medicaid, and they're going to destroy Medicare. And so...
Okay, despite everything, we're going to try to have fun throughout the segment on some of the clips that I have for you, but I don't know how to process that clip. We've now watched it twice without wanting to boil over in a rage. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite of what's true. And I know we've become numb to that, but imagining a president of the United States standing in the press briefing room and saying that we're pushing through legislation to save Medicaid when it's ripping hundreds of billions of dollars out of it while handing tax cuts to the rich is a mind bender. But then he was posting, the one big beautiful deal is all about growth. If passed, America will have an economic renaissance like never before. It's already happening, just in anticipation of the beautiful bill. This is like whenever he was saying the stock market was going up because of anticipation about his election back during the Republican primary. Things are hot, even though they're of course not. Aaron Rupar said Trump posted this about an hour before news broke that America actually lost private sector jobs this month. But about his posting style, just really quickly, I've started to text my work group text with Cole and Jaden like Trump does. I said, if you'll full screen this, Cole, I said, how are you? Where are you? Miss you already, to producer Jaden. Thank you for your attention to this matter. MAGA. And Jaden responded, good morning to all, including my radical left coworkers. I obliterated my drive yesterday with lethality and made it to Houston, then stayed in a hotel, and now I'm at Buc-ee's. Miss you guys too. JMW, Jaden Michael Williams, son of Michael. So, just want to let you know that I am being influenced by Trump in that way, for sure. Now, Tim Burchett, who is one of the people who expressed some skepticism, but then I told you at the top of this, I don't know in this meeting if it happened, but it happened in a lot of those calls that I just referenced. Trump screams at you until your leg goes between your legs. Your tail goes between your legs. You walk out and you say, he's so on it.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett, just going into the White House. Not sure if I'm going to the woodshed or not. I've been summoned by the president, so we'll see how this goes.
So that was him on his way in, doing a little Tim Burchett vlogging, and then on his way out, he said this.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. Just leaving the White House. Everybody say, hey, Byron Donalds, next governor of Florida.
It's great to
Right
be
there
on
he
with
is.
Timmy B.
Scott Perry, my number one man, General. I got Norman, got Burkine over here. Got us all, baby. President was wonderful, as always. Informative, funny. Told me he liked seeing me on TV. Which is kind of cool. Hey, Commissioner.
Hey, what about the children that will be hungry because you're ripping away their food benefits? Hey, Tim, what about the people who won't have life-saving health care because you're ripping away their health care? You're talking about how Trump said he likes you on TV. That's what I'm seeing with these Republicans. Do they? I mean, reporting indicates they do know. They do know how bad this is. And they're saying this is going to be devastating for my constituents, but what am I going to do? Trump swore at me. And so, but even if they're acknowledging that in private, publicly, it's so bizarre how out of touch they're coming off.
Me on TV, which is kind of cool. Hey, Commissioner, look at there. Commissioner wearing purple. That's the color of royalty.
All my people. Are we getting it done?
Yes, ma'am.
Good to see y'all.
I'm a happily married man. Oh, did you see
I'm
that?
so sorry, I'm
she
knocking
clipped
you
me,
over.
man. She clipped me. Did y'all see that? Anyway.
So this is social media at its finest. But did you notice him say, just as a little side note, I'm a happily married man while she was hugging him? Is this some Mike Pence thing? Every time a woman hugs you, you have to say, I'm a happily married man? Oh, we're going to hug now? All right, well, even if I get aroused, I just want you to know that I'm a happily married man.
My people. Are we getting it done?
Yes, ma'am.
Good to see y'all.
I'm a happily married man. Oh, did you see that?
I'm so sorry, I'm not.
It's a hug. You don't need to specify you're a happily married. It's a hug with a Trump official. What are we? All right, Tim. So it's very strange. Him and Mike Pence probably get along. So then he goes on to say, I'm kind of getting bored of that vlog, but he goes on to say that I think we're going to get this worked out. None of them have more motivation to support their constituents than they do to appease Trump. It's really scary. You had a Democrat on CNN telling Tim Burchett exactly what this is going to mean in his constituents' lives.
What did you make of what Senator Murkowski said today after she was the deciding vote here that allowed Vice President Vance to come in and be the yes? She said that it's been an awful process.
All right, Caitlin, just while you're asking me this question, just given your whole, you're a woman and stuff, I just wanted to let you know that I am a happily married man. So just stay, right now you're about 4 feet away from me. I want the producer, just make sure she stays that far away from me. Otherwise, I don't know, little Timmy's going to go crazy.
Called it a frantic rush to meet an artificial deadline that has tested every limit of this institution before sending it back over to the House.
She described it as agonizing to vote for it, but it's going to be more agonizing for the 30,000 people who lose health care in your district, or the 15,000 people who lose SNAP in your district. It's going to be agonizing for the millions of people who are going to lose food and health care simply to fund tax cuts for the top 1%. I have constituents who, after paying all their bills, live on $20 a day. And we're going to slash health care and food for those living on $20 a day to fund tax cuts for the likes of Elon Musk, who has a net worth of upward of $400 billion.
Well, Elon Musk doesn't like this bill
Well, Trump said he likes me on TV. What the hell is this Richie Torres talking about? Please do, as we continue through this, click the subscribe button if you appreciate this show. A lot to cover, and a lot of it frightening. We try to make the most of it. Nevertheless, here is a Democrat who, upon making some wonderful points, is then condemned for using naughty, potty words.
We've kept our heads down, we've kept our sleeves rolled up, we've kept our shoulder to the wheel, and all we've asked for is a fair shot and for this place to stop screwing us over. But you can't help yourselves. You got us into terrible trade deals that made Wall Street rich and shipped all of our jobs overseas. You bail out the banks while neglecting rural America. You rigged the economy so the corporate PACs that are funding your campaigns make huge profits, jacking up costs on folks who can't afford it. And now this. This bill will kill good blue-collar manufacturing jobs that we need to rebuild the economy in this country. It closes rural hospitals, it defunds health care, all to give trillions of dollars in tax cuts to your cronies. Don't tell me you give a shit about the middle class when all you're doing is shitting on the middle class.
Ooh.
Good job. Chair would remind both sides of two things. Please direct your remarks to the chair. That is a House rule, and to avoid vulgar speak. We do have families in the gentleman will not be recognized.
We do have families here today. We will take away your food. Hi. What's your name? Your name's Tim. You're Tim. Hi. Oh, you rely on food? Well, we will take that away, but you shouldn't hear the word shit. Do you understand? Republican priorities.
Young lady from North Carolina. Young lady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for reminding us of the language we should be using in this chamber. And I
yeah, I get they have rules and stuff in the House, whatever, but there is something effective about that, where it sets up, because I saw a bunch of people saying this, that Republicans are more angry about that Democrat swearing than destroying the lives of so many Americans. Set it up perfectly. Y'all fell right into his trap. Then this.
I urge my Republican colleagues to stand up, grow a spine, stop bowing down to your king, Donald Trump, represent your constituents like you were elected to do, and vote no on this horrible, big, ugly bill. I yield back.
Yeah, go Tim.
For the third time, the chair would remind members not to engage in personal...
This guy's like the other guy, but just a little spookier. This is like the Halloween edition of the other guy who is overseeing the House.
...personalities toward the president, or they will be called out of order. Gentlewoman from North Carolina.
Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
Why is she the one always being gone to? Okay. So there's that. Let me just give you another one. I just want to give Democrats a chance to make the case here, because Republicans are very quiet today. It's fascinating. They're not getting up and giving these passionate speeches in favor of it to the degree Democrats are. Tells you a lot.
Member from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, I never want to hear the Republicans lecture about fiscal responsibility again. The last president to actually balance this budget was Bill Clinton. And today, Bob Rubin and Larry Summers wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that every American should read. Their budget will take the deficit up to 8% of GDP. It is historically unprecedented in the history of our country during peacetime. We've never had a more reckless deficit exploding bill than what they're posing.
It's crazy. This is the party that says they care more about fiscal responsibility. Now, they're proving it very clearly here that they don't. That's obvious. But just remember that Democrats also historically have had the better record on debt and deficits also. So that gets lost a lot in these discussions, and Republicans being able to brand themselves as fiscally responsible when they're not. But even so, Democrats are more likely, when they are running up the deficit, to be doing so on programs that, at least in the short term, you are creating a debt problem, but at least in the short term, benefit people with the programs that are being invested in. Whereas Republicans, who have been the larger contributor to this problem, are so frequently running up, as we're seeing here, our debt problem with this insatiable need to give more tax cuts to the richest Americans. So it's true that Democrats are better on fiscal responsibility despite the Republican branding. But even if they were the same in the numbers, the things that are the priorities when you are increasing the deficit are very different. And that's kind of my point here with what you're seeing on screen. Hakeem Jeffries, with the entire House Democratic Caucus, stood out in front of the Capitol. And I just want to make the point, I've had a lot of criticisms lately of Democrats responding in such a weak way, not being able to message effectively, and just, it feels like, why aren't they on every single podcast ever all the time making the case? It's rare in politics you have something this unequivocal, this unpopular, and easy to message around. And so they should be doing it, and I don't feel like they're meeting the moment in many ways. But I do want to just make the point, because some people make such a criticism and then forget to contextualize it with, I'm really wanting to emphasize, while both parties are extremely flawed and the Democratic Party is not what I want it to be, it is morally irresponsible to make any false equivalency or to make an equivalency between these two parties. With all of the criticisms we've gone over of Democrats recently, they are all standing in unison opposing this atrocity. You can put that back up. It's now zooming out. And Republicans are going to end up passing it, is my prediction. So the fact that often there's an out of touch element, or they're not able to be as aggressive on the policies, or any of those things, don't let that convince you that it's not meaningful to try to get Democrats, and then better Democrats within the primaries, elected over Republicans. That's super important, and some commentators miss that. There is no equivalency between these two parties. Whatever bombshells Jake Tapper can bring to us, that truth does not become distorted. I just want to emphasize that, given what we have been talking about. And for a lot of people, if you're thinking about why your Republican family and friends aren't as motivated about this, because this isn't really like it necessarily doesn't need to be a partisan issue. You would think just people with common sense would go, oh yeah, that's crazy in one bill to have the combined effect that you're taking from the poor and giving to the rich. Who would ever want that ever? Especially in a time of this sort of income inequality. That doesn't have to be, that's not like the debates over trans or something where you know where everyone's going to fall. But the reason is a lot of them have been so convinced that as long as we're checking the box of owning the libs, we good. Scott Jennings made the announcement that he's starting a new radio show and ended it with "Bring your cups, the liberal tears will flow." That idea of owning the libs has embedded itself so deeply into the minds of folks that sometimes they can't see straight. All they can think about is that, even if they're about to get hurt a ton by their politicians. So speaking of the politicians that are hurting them, I want to circle back to this. One thing I didn't do enough of when we first covered the news that the bill had left the Senate was looking at the people who had railed against it and then checking in on their voting record, because only 3 Republican senators voted against this bill. And it wasn't some of the ones you saw most aggressively advocating against it. Remember Josh Hawley saying things like this?
I mean, we can't be cutting health care for working people and for poor people in order to constantly give special tax treatment to corporations and other entities. And we've delayed that in this bill. But it won't, unless we take further changes or take further steps, it will happen in future years. And I'm opposed to this. If we're going to be a working class party, we've got to protect working people. And
he voted for it. He voted for it. It's unbelievable. Then Ron Johnson.
I couldn't care less if he's upset. I'm concerned about my children, my grandchildren, and the fact that we are stealing from them. We are stealing from our children and grandchildren. $37 trillion in debt, and we're going to add to it as Republicans?
He voted for it. It's unbelievable. You take that down. Quickly before going further, Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Susan Collins were the 3 Republicans who voted against it. Now, some people make the point that how much credit can you give them when sometimes it seems just enough Republicans vote against it? They get their turn to vote against it while knowing it's going to pass. But at least they voted against it. I don't know. Then, of course, this moment, Lisa Murkowski, who said she was agonizing over voting for it.
Up there. Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
So this is the part where she just silently stares at the reporter. Her eyes are shut now.
Ma'am, I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska.
I'm going to start doing that. If anyone in the workplace asks a question I don't like. Hey, Luke, sorry, I forgot. Remind me what time we're starting tomorrow? Just stare. It's very intimidating. But she voted for it after saying, oh, it's so terrible, all the things that the bill's doing. So this is why I started the segment the way that I did. We have to come to terms with the fact that no amount of reports about, oh, Republicans behind the scenes are so baffled by what's in this legislation. And this Republican is bravely saying that Trump... Like, I even credited Josh Hawley multiple times because he would say, honestly, guys, we keep saying this is waste fraud. It's not. We're not getting rid of waste fraud abuse. We're not getting rid of the undocumented immigrants, mister. We're not getting rid of those things. That's not what's saving all this money. We're just ripping 13 million people off of their health coverage. And we're reducing people's food benefits. That's what's happening. And we're doing that while giving tax giveaways to people who donated to us. Ooh. He would say it at least clearly and debunk what Trump was saying. And then he voted for it. And he said, oh, it's because I got some alterations that made it less bad. But we already went over the numbers, and it's not less bad.
And listen to this quote from Senator Murkowski, who just caved and voted for this bill. And you got to love this. She said, quote, my hope is that the House is going to look at this and recognize that we're not there yet, end quote. I mean, my question to her is, if you really believe that, then why the hell did you vote for this bill? It doesn't make any sense. It's a dereliction of your duty as a United States Senator and as a representative for the people in Alaska.
Yeah, and she said it's because she got goodies for Alaska and exemptions, and it's going to be better for them. But the thing we keep hearing from these Republicans is, well, I just didn't want to vote against it because then taxes would increase on this group or that group. Which, in the context of the broader combined effect, is kind of a dumb point to make. And you could reject the bill and then try to craft a better one. That's an option. That's an option. And Steve Bannon, obviously a huge supporter of Trump, even he was noticing during his show today that Democrats are getting up and making very compelling speeches, and Republicans are just sort of like, please don't notice that I'm here. Because all of them are dreading clips from this saying, I love this bill and Trump's wonderful, coming back to haunt them next election.
You're seeing the 2026 midterm right there. I think what's very disappointing is not enough Republicans standing up. If you believe in this bill, you got to stand up for it. You've got to.
They don't, Steve. That's the point. They don't believe in this bill. They believe in their fealty to Trump. That's it.
Sell the growth program. You just can't hide there. And Joe Wilson just wandering around from South Carolina talking about everything. Focus on what's in this bill. Focus on what's in this bill, and you should be up firing back on these Democrats. They got their pitch down. I wanted you to hear the pitch. I know it upset many of you, and it's going to upset many of you because this is what you're going to hear through Election Day of 2026. The Republicans have got to stand up and defend this. If it's going to get voted down in the rule, it's going to get voted down the rule. But right now, we're seeing these are feckless Republicans. You got to step up, step into the plate. You ought to know this bill as well as the Democrats.
Republicans have advocated for some really unpopular things in the past, and they do it with gumption. They do it like it's the best thing ever. And this, even they are prompting Steve Bannon to go, where are you guys? Do you even want this bill? No is the answer. But they just all can't handle, like an adult, being called up by Trump screaming and swearing at them and saying, I'm going to take you down. But what's the point? This is what really baffles me. Being in Congress, it's not that great. Right? I mean, it's not that great. One of 435 members. It's not like your pay is something crazy. I mean, yes, they find all the ways to make a lot of money, but you're in Congress for a reason. I know a lot of them get obsessed with being there, but you're there for a reason. And it's not just to hang out with Tim Burchett, okay? As fun as that might be. Isn't it to leave feeling like you've done something positive? So then if you're just going to hand over all of your agency, hand over your balls, as people would say, to Trump, then what's the point? What's the point if you don't believe in the things you're doing and you're just doing everything out of fear of Trump? Why are you there? Go do something else. And maybe you shouldn't do this job if you're really, really bad. Let me reframe this. Steve Bannon says Republicans aren't getting up and giving passionate speeches in defense of this bill. I think he's wrong. Here's Michael Baumgarten. Or what's his name? Baumgartner. Here's Michael Baumgartner.
And I'm inspired in thinking about the big, beautiful bill of not only this president, but two of my favorite former presidents.
Tell us, Michael.
The first would be President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who realized, it's getting the appropriate quote, who realized the negative impacts of high tax rates. Indeed, roughly 60 years ago, President Kennedy warned, I have a constituent, the largest single barrier to full employment of our manpower and resources. And
Dang it. That was your moment. You think JFK would be for this? I hate when they do that. And Martin Luther King Jr. said, I have a dream. Which is connected to this because I have a dream that will rip away healthcare for millions of people. Like, don't cite the person if you know they would hate everything about what you're doing. Please. Martin Luther King said it's good to make sure you're hydrated. And that's why I think we should kill every puppy. Like, really? What are we doing? Don't cite someone like that. Samantha Ruddy said, Democrats can't get a crosswalk installed when they have all three branches, but it took Republicans 6 months to gut the entire U.S. government like it was a red lobster. Now, this is the criticism I'm talking about. I see the rage there. Now, I don't like when people do, because again, there's historical revisionism people will do where they ignore any positive steps that were accomplished under Democratic administrations. Can we just be nuanced people and say, hey, here's some really good things. That was so much better than the Trump administration. And real long-lasting accomplishments happened, for example, during Biden's term. And it bothers me that the level of aggression that Trump comes out with whenever he gets into office for bad things isn't matched for good things by Democrats. Like, do you remember when Biden was having his agenda withheld by just two Democratic senators, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema? And there were all of these really great agenda items in Build Back Better that ended up being ripped out because of those two senators. And Biden would say, I wish they would support it, but it was a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. But whenever someone opposes Trump, he comes out and goes ballistic. And so you don't want to cross any of those moral lines, but I always wish that Biden would just put a pressure campaign on those two senators like Trump does whenever Republicans defy him. Fight as hard for good things within the bounds of your principles as often people like Trump will fight for the bad things. And that I get. So while we think, I love when a producer can see the preview. While I think that the Republicans are kind of trying to like hide under their chair during this whole process, and they're going to, while it's disgusting, that I get it. Like, I understand the logic there. Just try not to be seen supporting this. But some people like Nancy Mace thinks it's the best thing ever to show how hard you're working to get this terrible legislation through. She said, made it just in time to vote for the one big beautiful bill. And she had some flight cancellations, so she rented one of these Sprinter vans and drove to DC to make it in time for the voting. And she did a whole like the song On the Road Again from Willie Nelson was playing in the background as a compilation of her going to Wawa and in the road trip, and they're having all this good time. We're gonna starve the kids. Like, I can't think of it. I should have thought of lyrics ahead of time. And I'm in my PJs while I take away healthcare. 'Cause you will die, like Joni Ernst said.
Oh, wait, is she on?
There she is.
Made it. What time is it? 9 o'clock?
8:45? 8:52? We made it an hour to go to the vote.
A little too giddy about reverse Robin Hooding America. Then someone named Kinsey quoted Representative Van Orden, who's a Republican, saying, "The President of the United States didn't give us an assignment. We're not a bunch of little bitches around here, okay? I'm a member of Congress. I represent almost 800,000 Wisconsinites." So let's check in on Van Orden. Let's see how he votes when this ultimately... He's saying, we're not little bitches. And so I guess my plea to Republicans is don't be little bitches. as he said. But I think too many of them are going to just do what needs to be done for Trump. One of these, like, make passive income by doing sell shoes that you bought from someone behind a store. Chase Passive Income is his name. Said, I do 50 to 60 job interviews in here every day. I never hire anyone, but about half the applicants buy a drink from the vending machine after I subtly encourage them to. I make $300 a day in passive income with this method. Gosh, I hate this type of influencer. Here's how you can make $3,000 a month in passive income. But also, what a scam. That's crazy. But how's it passive income? Do you have to interview the people? I'm confused. And then later he said, I don't know if this is real or a joke, but he does actually have one of those passive income things. Guess who owns the towing service that patrols the lot in case the interviews go a few minutes too long? And this guy has put together less of a scam than Trump's bill. That's how I connected it in my head. Something I just wanted to read to you. Then you have Chuck Schumer.
Also know this is just the beginning. If Doge attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service or the IRS or even the Social Security Administration. They could be next. Or maybe our national security agencies. Also.
So this was in the wake of USAID officially being declared shut down, which is estimated to lead to the death of millions of people globally. And let's start where we finished with Tim Burchett, who said, it's a start. Like rooting on, like Chuck Schumer's listing all the things they might shut down. He's going, yeah, it's a start. Which I think for so long we had these Republicans in Congress who would say the craziest things, and you thought, oh, that's just political message. Like, it just works nicely to say really radical things, but they know they'll never have to vote on them because they're only one of a few wacky people, and all the other reasonable people will save them from ever actually having to see the outcome of their disastrous policy. For so long, that was the case. People would say, dismantle the Department of Education. You're sort of Tea Party people to fund all these agencies, woo! And it would create for a good applause line. But then now we have enough crazy Republicans and a crazy Republican president to actually vote on some of these things, and we're seeing just how bad it can be. So now it's no longer cute or funny because we're looking at millions of people dying, literally. Maybe I can pull up this headline for you. Millions of people, because of the decisions. I'm going to find it. I'm going to everyone wait. Just wait. You're not even being patient. God. CNN, Rubio hails end of USAID as study says its elimination could contribute to 14 million deaths in the next 5 years. And Tim Burchett is going, it's a start. It's not funny. And for a second, he said it's a start. They're rooting on shutting down the IRS. What do they even think that means? The IRS, the tax people? Who's gonna get tax revenue? I don't want any taxes. Okay, who's gonna fund the police? We'll fund them. Volunteer. Who's gonna fund the military? Well, maybe we'll get a little tax for that. So who's gonna get those taxes? The tax people? What if we called that the Internal Revenue Service? All right. Cool. It's just bonkers. Share your thoughts in the comments.